Hey, that's a weird place for my mic. Give me one sec. Is that a bit better? Hey, Sim. I tried to quickly fix my fringe and it did not go according to plan. Brandy, you made it. So I'm just gonna chat a little bit of rubbish before. Well, let's not call it rubbish. I'm just gonna chat a little bit before we crack on because it is still pretty early in the US, I think. I actually just want to close that. There's an echo. Oh no. Um, Whoa. How's that? I don't know what just played. It was like I could hear my own stream, but with music. No echo. Okay. I want to close that curtain quickly because it's ruining my on air sign. Well, that didn't change anything. Still an echo. Weird. Because I don't have anything playing, I don't think. Let me just check my other tabs. Okay. Is that better? Let's see. What about now? Let's move this mic a little bit. So, Brandy, you don't have an echo. Oh, got a little kitty there. Oh, awesome. So, I'm glad. There's a kitty. That is Phoebe. She is 1000% my cat. And she thinks that I birthed her. Her fur is on this mic, if you can see that. I'm not like 100% loving the mic placement. Just one sec. Is the audio okay if it's a bit further away? Because it looks like it's quite soft on my end. Hey, Bug Dugger. Because then it's at least out of the screen. I mean, it's like, if this is so random, but if anyone wants a beast of a USB mic that is... Oh, okay, audio still sounds the same, says Brandy. If anyone wants a beast of a USB mic that is so affordable, it can't do like all the fancy things, but it is a Fifine, something with a 7. It's like this. Non-spun. But I got it during the panoramic because I needed to be able to do radio from home. And I've recorded audiobooks with it. I've done radio. I've done meetings. I've done videos. And it is amazing for the price. Like, absolutely amazing. So I thought I'd just give it like 5 minutes or so because I know that last time people said the notifications didn't go out until late. How do you like my makeshift no branding? But then I go and do that, like, it actually doesn't make sense because that was the main company that didn't like, me doing it, that didn't like me posting Disneyland. I heard it last night, and I was actually originally today going to try and do a battle and, like, come up with something better, but it's actually Freedom Day here, and I felt inspired to talk about gag orders and the media, being a journalist, what gag orders mean for me, why they frustrate me, etc. But I mean, like, if anyone wants to help with a rebuttal rap battle, we can do that as well. It's a good song, like, genuinely good song. I enjoyed it. I wasn't there for how it came together into be like a studio production. I don't know if anyone else saw that part. Yeah, the gag orders, I could honestly like, I've already got 3 streams in mind for them. One is Kohberger, which is kind of what I've got a bit about today. The other one is a UK case called Nicola Bulley, and the third one is Franklin Tucker, because that was one that the gag order really did my head in and allowed for a lot of not okay practices. Courtney put it into music. I wonder if she used AI because I actually have a I think I mentioned I was gonna do a podcast. Am I the donkey butt, donkey hole, or is ADHD to blame? And I got a guy on Fiverr. I wrote the lyrics with the help of ChatGPT, and then got a guy on Upwork to make it a song. And it's actually a legit song. Like, it's really cool. I just felt like I couldn't it wasn't something I could do in a podcast format because it would be so much easier to bounce it off people. So I think, like, if this ever becomes my main job, which I enjoy it, but I love my main job, I would probably try to revive that podcast and then just do it as lives. But I really love my main day job, so I don't plan to do that. I also had, I've got another, like, for the impromptus. I think I did a banner for it the other day, but rants and bants. That's kind of that's kind of my vibe when it's gonna be, like, an impromptu, like, I don't know, recovery addicts on lunch or something, or I see something and it really just is a bigger rant than a stream, or I just feel like having fun. And biggest problem was I sing but no music, so now big tinfoil hat, AI scared me. I use AI every single day of my life. I use ChatGPT to help with my scripts. I ask it to help pinpoint anything that could come across as sensational, anything that isn't, I mean, the same tune, seeming objective. I ask it if there's any parts of the scripts that are confusing that someone might have questions about, if there are any parts that don't flow properly. We use it a lot for research, for data collection, like, absolutely. I am pro AI 100%. Rag Records LLC. I actually mailed Recovery Addict this morning and asked if I can use the Top Mark Media Daybell stream, not Daybell, Kohberger, and I haven't heard back from him, but I can't remember what he said. I know he said people can use Top Mark Media And then I asked about attribution, and he said something, and I don't remember. So if any of you heard that, please let me know, because I'm not gonna just use it. Like, it's poor practice here to use something without reaching out first. Well, if you have any social media, then you're kind of you could actually have both of those. So don't want to burst your bubble. I think the thing is, for me with AI, it's better to lean into it and learn it, work with it. I'm still human at the end of the day. I can add something that other human that AI can't. I'm not scared of it, doesn't bother me. It only has as much information as it's fed. Um, what is bothering me though is my fringe. I might actually like have to. Okay, Sims, that's what I thought. Just need to give him a plug. I put it in my description in the meantime and said go and subscribe there. So I think it'll be okay. I just hate it when people don't do things the right way. I'm actually just going to open it in the meantime and pause. Yeah, I think like the main thing is like AI is not going anywhere. It's in your interest to learn it and understand it. It's kind of like if you think of the C to the 19 word, like in the beginning, we were all so scared of it because it was unknown. So there was this looming anxiety because we didn't know anything about it. And then the more we learned about it, the more comfortable we became with it. And now here we are. I had it in November last year, and I felt like I was going to terminate, and I didn't, but I didn't have the anxiety. The anxiety was really bad in the beginning. Hey, 6-volt bus. And Cicini. Is that how I say it? Cicini? Cini. Yeah. The problem is the where I ran into an issue with the copyright last time was it was a like bot flag. So it wasn't the actual company that saw it and claimed it. It was like automated. And then I have to all of a sudden like cut and start something new, and then I can go back and appeal it, but it breaks the stream up because it takes it down and then people are staring at a blank screen. I don't even know what's going on. I don't even know I'm not live. I last time had to set up my YouTube live on the side so that I could watch it to know when it went down. So it's not so much like the person striking, it's more the automated thing. And then it can take 30 days to appeal. And I won the last one in like 24 hours because once they watched it, then they realized that it was very much transformative. I had even cut up the video and added my own like effects and everything like that. So it was okay, but I still have to go through in the stream having it be taken down. Sorry, I'm confused because we live in like a gated community vibe and someone just drove past hooting like beep 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 beep, and that never happens. And I can hear sirens. And we had a thunderstorm this morning with no rain. And like Cape Town doesn't get thunderstorms. So I think we're feeling a little bit like what is happening. Speaking of storms, last night I was watching a live report with storm chasers. Actually, let me see if I can get the guy's channel. It was pretty cool. I'm not a fan of people storm chasing on their own, but if they know what they're doing, then it's all good. Where are you? Where are you? And I'm so sorry. I am so sorry that you had to hear that. I did so much research this morning that now I can't find the thing. This guy's channel is actually huge, 1.8 million subs. Hey, that's actually that's who I was just gonna share. Ryan Hall. I watched Ryan Hall and I watched briefly Texas Weather Center, but I didn't enjoy that. I was waiting for Weather Watch to go live. I'm not sure. It's this that I shared, this link. It's Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall. Hey y'all, or something like that. Ryan Hall, y'all. Y'all. So I don't know if he's max velocity, but he had I don't know, but he had like storm chasers checking in. It was a really like elaborate production. I was pretty impressed. I have never heard of him, obviously, because I don't live in the US. I don't really watch storm things. Like I'm not keeping up with it unless I'm writing about it. And in that case, it's generally not live. Why do some chats have hearts and others don't? Are you meaning that come up on the screen, like the reactions hearts? I might have it because I am going through StreamYard, not through the YouTube live stream. And so in the YouTube live stream, when you go live straight from there, you can customize a lot of things. When you go through StreamYard, you have to go into YouTube Studio and fix all of those settings. So it's basically either you're very diligent, which I am not that diligent of going in after and customizing, or you like it that way. I haven't quite figured out yet because the channels I work on don't do live, but I haven't worked out if it increases the engagement, because one of the things I've noticed while I've been going live is that the engagement, YouTube picks up the engagement completely differently. The watch hours, everything. Like YouTube loves lives, loves, 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 loves. So I don't know if it counts to anything. Just like I will always be transparent about how my channel's doing and whatever. I'm not monetized yet, but for example, if I post a vlog, the watch hours are significant. Like I've done 3 lives, right? And I've gotten I don't have my phone here. Let's see, YouTube Studio. Analytics. My watch time is 42.4 hours, and it only comes from the lives and 1 video and 1 short. So yeah. But you have to be live from YouTube itself. Please just tell me if my audio gets too soft, because I feel like I'm moving further and further away from the mic, but in theory, it should pick it up very nicely. Yeah, it's StreamYard versus going directly. I can probably change it. I don't know if it's distracting, but it's like within the thingy-majiggy. Actually, I don't want to mess with it now because hey, Jim. Okay, so it's probably about 9:20, right? Oh, that's so cute. I don't want to be an anime character, but I want to be a Disney princess. That is my calling. Honestly, like I am Belle. Belle is me. My entire life, I was weird. I love it now. I was weird and I just wanted to read. That's all I wanted to do. 11:20. Okay. Because I've noticed that the funny thing with lives is like whatever time I started, 20 minutes in is like a good time for people to join. So I was trying to figure out like if it's a bit later in the day. It's 5:30 here. Okay, so Sim and Jim on the same time zone. Awesome. I'm glad it sounds consistently level because it's like way over here. But like I said, it's a little beast. It is a beast. Also, early word of warning, my ADHD meds are done for the day. So if I'm all over the place, I'm sorry. It's going to be a battle of time zones. This is what's always going to happen if I stream this late. But on the plus side, you get unfiltered normal me, which is 5,000 trains at the same time. "9:23 a.m. in Canada." I would love to go to Canada. My partner was there in Whistler, and he loved it. How do we do this? Which is the one that I made? Is it this one? Or this one? I think this one's better. We're used to ADHD, Runkle and Rob. I know. When I listen to Friday Night, is it Friday Night Frenzy? My brain just blanked. And it's them and EDB. I keep up with all the trains and it is entertaining because my brain can't just stick to one thing. Or if it does stick to one thing, it wants to rabbit hole hard. Like it needs to stay in that one thing and almost be obsessive. So this is where two screens really come in handy because I can't exactly see. If I go full screen, where is chat now? Okay, if I go full screen, I can't see chat. Therefore, I cannot. But it's really hard to see. Bug. This is funny. It's really hard for me to see the document, so I might have to like jump across the two. Okay. So this was just like almost stream of consciousness. I actually got quite emotional when I was writing about journalism and our constitution and that sort of thing. Today is Freedom Day. So this was when we had our first post-apartheid election. And I am sorry that I cannot go too deep into apartheid, but it's been a long time since I've had to explain it and that sort of thing. And I don't want to go off the top of my head, and I didn't want to get distracted from what I'm actually here to talk about, which is gag orders. So are there any channels that I can recommend for that? Let's see. Actually, probably not without checking it myself. Because I don't think I trust them. Do another live at a later date. It's also like, I mean, I can deep dive and research and come back. it is just also quite contentious because apartheid literally means separate. So it's our history of separation. In summary, during that time, races weren't allowed to mix. There was a lot of hatred, propaganda, misinformation that drove groups of people to believe different things that were not true. For example, one of the famous ones, Nelson Mandela was a terrorist. That was a genuine belief that was out there in the media, and he landed up being one of the most loved leaders in history. And there's a little bit of contention there as well. But if I were to go super deep dive, I would probably have to go into the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and some of the things that were brought up there. And there are aspects of SA, not the country I live in, the other thing that it means, and disappearing people and that sort of thing. Yes, it's also hard to know how many lives were lost because people would just go missing. And the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, in summary, was supposed to be a place where you came and told everything and the victims' families could get closure. And it was not entirely successful. So we don't know the magnitude, but we are 30 years into our democracy. And also, just to take a few steps back, I've noticed, and I'm just going to post this here. Let me just switch back to my face. Oh no, I need a sneeze. A trick we used to do in radio is you pinch your hand if you need to sneeze. Where was I going with this? So I can't actually remember where I was going. Oh, yes. So from what I've noticed, and I do not mean this in any kind of offensive way, it is purely an observation. It feels like sometimes in general in the US, things are either one way or the other. People can crop out chat. Oh, is that possible? I can't do banners because, wait, maybe I can get creative. Give me a sec. Someone remind me that I'm talking about the difference that I've noticed in the US. Let's just find. You guys are just going to have to. Okay, wait. I can actually share the screen, and then we can just play together. Cat background. We just do this. Oh, for goodness sake. There we go. That's good enough. There we go. Difference you've noticed in the US. Thanks, Brandy. Okay, so I have noticed that it feels like in the US, it's either one or the other. And I don't want to go into a political debate. I just want to explain before I go back to South Africa's history. It feels like either you are a Democrat or a Republican, either you're left wing or you're right wing. The middle is often not there. And I don't mean it in an offensive way. It's just something that I find tricky to navigate sometimes. So when I say in our democracy, it's not the same as being far to the one side or the other. Our democracy to us was equality for races and genders. That's what it meant. Having the right to vote, having the right to own properties, because there was a long time where women couldn't own properties, people of color couldn't own properties. So that's what I'm meaning. Brandy, I'm not going to highlight that comment actually, because that's gonna get me in trouble if I don't add context. But that's kind of how it tends to come across to an outsider, and that's not what I want you to be thinking when I say our democracy, 30 years into our democracy, because it means something very different to us. And it's something that was fought for very hard. Lives were lost. We're eternally grateful. It's in no way relatable to American politics. Okay, so we're 30 years into our democracy. There's a lot that has to be changed. We have elections coming up in a month. It is one of the biggest elections. People are frustrated. And it is a tricky time. So this is a big one. And Freedom Day is a big one. Hence, I landed up rabbit holing on it. I've also somehow changed it so that I can't see like the live or something. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now that I've said that, we can play gag order, gag order. Not that way, not that way. So basically, thanks, Jim. I'm very proud of my country, really, I am. We struggle sometimes. I think this view is better, right? That the bigger one. Yeah, really like a lot is horrible to read, but it's necessary. Like I mentioned, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. That's not a fun read. It's hard, it's sad, it's devastating, and it's not okay. People weren't imprisoned. I mean, one of the main role players lives in a mansion and lives their happy life. And that was a problem. But anyway, we are very lucky because we still have freedom of the press. I also need to say that a lot of the links are in the description. So if there's something that I talk about that you want to check out, it's in the description. You can check it out. Happy Freedom Day. Your history is very interesting. People could learn a lot from knowledge of it. It is. And I also just want to say that it is very important to remember when you're researching, which goes to this point, that for a long time, the people writing the history books were the people carrying out the atrocities. So it also plays into like media, what is out there. It's best to try and explore all different views on it, because even when I was in my last year of school, when I was 18, we had to wait because textbooks were being reprinted for history. And even the reprinted version played a lot of things down a lot because of fear of creating more tension and that sort of thing. So it's still taking a lot of time for the actual history to come out. And I only discovered once I was already out of journalism that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's pages are public. You can read the entire thing. How were you born or raised? I know you talk about colonialism and such. Ignore me if you don't want to say it. Oh, I don't mind at all. I had to learn a lot of lessons because I had a lot of unconscious bias that only really came to light when I moved to Cape Town. I grew up in the Eastern Cape. It's not as Cape Town has its problems with racism and people still being a bit. There's a lot of undertones, is probably the best way to put it, but there's less undertones than the town I grew up in, which was very small. And my grandpa was, on my mom's side, was an anti-apartheid journalist, and he faced a lot of problems with reporting the stories. He would often land up trying to get both sides. Like, we asked him how he managed to keep the police in his favor, because he was with police when one of the icons, Steve Biko, when he died, and he heard the real story. And we were kind of like, if you were reporting things that people didn't want reported, how did you manage it? And he said basically what he used to do is give only enough information that they think they're going somewhere and that they could find on their own, but they didn't. So we always had the news on instead of background music. My parents were very neutral in comparison to a lot of people that I grew up with. I don't want to go too much further down that path of like the differences, because I'm going to land up getting stuck in a hole that I can't explain without really thinking about it. But it's always been very much a case of you keep informed with the news, look at all different sides. My mom is very well-read and balanced. She doesn't really like believe Facebook mom news. She will read more, understand more. We always had discussions about it. She didn't like hide the news from us as kids. It was very much like a part of our day-to-day life. And I kind of always knew I wanted to be a journalist. Like I've like kind of had other potential ideas, but then it was the thing that stuck, and it was the thing that had that fire in my belly kind of feeling. The other things were interior design and law. So the law plays in, like, lawyers and journalists, we are the same. We need to hear all the sides of the story, and we need to come to our own conclusion and be very objective. And interior design, I still do, just not as a career. And I think I think I'm too much of like a mediator and a journalist at heart to have such a creative, relaxed job. Like I would find myself being like an interior designer, but then like my clients would be telling me their stories. I don't know. I also briefly thought of psychology, which also plays into journalism. And I can't remember how I got to this point at all. Can you hear the dog barking this time? Because I'm in my office now instead of the other room. Please stop barking. Oh, thank goodness you can't hear it. It's going like roof, roof, roof. Thanks, Brandy. I don't think they're dimples. I think they're wrinkles. Honestly, I think they're wrinkles, which is funny. Because I didn't used to have them. It's only when I realized I was in my 30s, I was like, damn, I've been expressive for so many years of my life that now it's like Botox time. You're on my TV and not straight in my ears. Okay, so 6-volt bus, you had me in on headphones. So potentially you would be able to let me know, because if it is a problem, well, actually, if it's a problem, there's nothing I can do about it. So maybe don't even let me know. I also feel weird complimenting people, but it's also the easiest way. Like if I were to go into an interview to say like politicians are a good example. So I want to interview a politician. This is all fake. I want to interview a politician about what their plans are post-election. I will always start with hey, I like your suit, because immediately it like breaks that barrier down. And then you make them think that, you're friends. And then as soon as they're comfortable, you say, and what are you going to do about GBV? And then they're like, what? And then you make sure you get that part on camera as well, so that the mask of politicians slips perfectly. But anyway, I want to switch over to the document. Just a heads up, I'm going to have to bounce between the two so that I can see comments. So if you comment something and I don't see it, I'm sorry. I am not nearly as tech set up as the other streamers, because this is still very much hobby land and I'm enjoying it. Not that like setting it up, I wouldn't enjoy it. I just mean like I'm keeping it simple because it's a hobby. So what journalism is meant to achieve. And I wrote this kind of as an overview just before to like lay the foundation. The most important characteristic shared by good journalists is curiosity. Good journalists love to read and want to find out as much as they can about the world around them. This is kind of what I was saying in the beginning about us having freedom and what the history says. A good journalist will always try to get both sides, even if you don't agree with the other side. And you'll often see me playing devil's advocate in the comments of trials, because that is a part that I can't lose. I have to at least see from both sides to make my own decision. And the next point, if someone declines to comment, that is still, you reach out, and if they decline to comment, that can also tell a story. So imagine said politician, I say, what are you going to do about GBV? I'm not going to say the words out loud. I'm sure if you Google, it'll come up. It's a big problem here. And then they say, I decline to comment. Then when I go back and do the voiceover for the story, I'm going to say, Popsicle leader Joe Soap declined to comment. And that little declined, that's going to like really show the story. You're going to know that I tried to get something out of the person and they declined. Not that they didn't comment, they would not comment. Then you're like, what are they hiding? Why are they declining to comment? Oh, let me pop over to chat. Just for that, I'm going to leave this. I am recovered addict. Back to my tab. Where is my tab? Frankie, come. I'm here. Come in. When I looked up, just for my own interest, the definition of journalism, one of the things was taking verified facts and turning them into being understandable to the general public. This is where the gag order frustrates me, because if I cannot verify facts, I cannot present them to people to counter unverified facts. Sorry, I hope that wasn't super loud. So that's what bothers me. And I have some examples with Kohberger, but I just grabbed this article that I thought was very interesting. What is a gag order? Definition, examples, and more. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech. The Constitution also protects the right to a fair trial. And sometimes publicly sharing information about a trial can interfere with that right. What happens when the rights to free speech and to fair trials come into tension? Sometimes a judge may issue a gag order. But what is a gag order exactly? Why do they exist? How does a judge decide when to issue them? So we know what gag orders are. The Sixth Amendment right protects the rights to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. This sometimes aligns with the First Amendment to right to access and publish information, including about criminal trials. The two amendments come into conflict sometimes, and too much publicity can create unfairness. This is what they're trying to go for in Kohberger. I might be able to play some of that in a bit. Witnesses could be threatened or harassed and even pressured to change their testimony. Karen Reed comes to mind. And trade secrets, no one cares about that in this situation. If there's a compelling interest in silencing trial participants, I know this is just wording written by someone writing the article, obviously written by a writer, but that made me feel so uncomfortable because silencing was a weird word. I would say in holding back or in maintaining confidentiality. So something like that would be a little better, but it is not necessarily anything to do with the actual laws. It's more just like for my personal preference. If I was to write this on Freedom Forum, I would prefer that wording. Is there extensive pre-trial news media coverage? Will the order prevent further information from reaching potential jurors? Here is where, to me, Kohberger is the biggest example. So, to me, let's check comments first. Thoughts on Delphi? You know, I actually, I followed it in the beginning, and I actually watched the Dr. Phil episode on it. And then I kind of lost track when it all came up, and then there was the potential cult. I actually need to do like a catch up on that because I've lost my way a bit, and I got very confused when I was trying to listen to the court of courts. My brain can't get to the word. Federal court? No. I'm literally like searching the brain dictionary and nothing's coming up. When the court went before the 5 judges, Supreme Court, that's the one. That I got so confused. Like I always think confidently I could lawyer until I watch something like that. And then I'm like, oh wait, maybe I really don't know what I'm talking about. First thought is, what are they trying to hide? This is exactly the point of why it becomes so difficult for a journalist to maintain balance when you are receiving the information with and this is not anything wrong with you. This goes back to why I don't like them. You are receiving the information through the lens that you're not getting all the facts. What does that mean? That means that people then can spin up conspiracy theories, and decent journalists cannot refute those with facts. There is no way to actually pause and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. this is what this source says, and this is what this source says. None of the other stuff is verified, so it's all speculation. They can't do that because they don't have access to that because there's a gag order. And that is frustrating because, for example, I think I even put it in my notes. For some reason, my throat is so tickly right now. Speculation and wild stories run free. Regardless of what happens at the trial, imagine if somebody is wrongfully accused, for example, Tucker, their image is further tainted. No one will watch the trial. I mean, not everyone will watch the trial where speculation and conspiracy theories are everywhere. With Tucker, the gag order allowed all the police, the DA, the judge, all of their misconduct to go unchecked. And in a way, they pushed him to go pro se, which is a problem because he is not a great pro se. Seriously? He's not. He's good at pro se, but he's not a lawyer. His case is strong. If he had a lawyer, he would hands down win. And I want him to because he is straight up not. The way they've treated him, the way they've spun the story is wild. But I'm gonna like deep dive into that and show you guys what I found back when the trial was happening. Freedom of press. So this is solely South Africa. Media freedom is our freedom, and that is because of the apartheid rules and that sort of thing. I already told you about my grandpa. The speech I added in the description, I'm not going to play it because it's quite long, might be a bit boring, but basically in summary, they've got a legal fund with the elections coming up to help journalists to be able to tell the story and to be able to tell it regardless of who the main person is. For example, our ex-president is a TikTok sound saying, listen properly. He had a inquiry that was called the Zondo Commission, and journalists need to be able to report on that kind of thing. Otherwise, it is a problem with our constitution, which falls under Chapter 9. Chapter 9 is there to make sure that the government can't do things that are against our constitutional rights. The constitution was changed when apartheid ended. In summary, I don't understand why. I don't know if I ate something that like I'm having a little bit of allergy to, if there was cinnamon in something. Oh, wait. There's a message before. He needed an out-of-state lawyer because any local would be intimidated into Nassau County if you don't know. Ooh. I was actually watching Tucker's live this morning. Well, he was live a few days ago, but I was watching that. Maybe last night he was live. I don't know. I was rewatching it, and he brought up another case in Key West that I need to look into. I'm also debating whether I want to invite him to join a live to talk about the gag order or not, because I think I can handle the interview. Like, I've done tough interviews and I'd be fine. But I do believe in his cause and his case, and I don't want him to self-snitch. Also, I need to leave you guys here for a minute and mute because I need to go and grab an antihistamine. I've got dried eucalyptus above me, and I'm wondering if that's maybe what's annoyed my throat. This is the thing, right? It's a real battle for me because I've Bug, I didn't realize you were trying to stir it up while I was gone. Um, it's a difficult one for me because part of the ethics that have been repeatedly drilled into me is that if I'm going to talk about someone, I need to give them the right to reply. And so it feels like it would be bad journalism ethics to do an entire stream about him and not give him the right to reply. However, like I said, I worry about him saying things that only make his case worse. What I might offer is he can send me a written reply and then I can respond and we can like have a conversation about it, not live, so that if there's anything that I feel could be problematic, I can bounce off him. Oh, we might have to watch the Kohberger video so that I can not choke. A 10-year-old stuck in a 50-something body. I'm 33 and I'm 100% still. I mean, I've got Disney there. Like, yeah, and I am very much, he frustrates me. I will say it over and over again. I would say it to his face. He really frustrates me. But he has good points. His case is ridiculous. Publish after the trial. I could do that. Do the interview with him before and just record it. I could do that. Because I would hate to be the reason something goes wrong. And in the live I was watching, they were bringing up the gag order again. So what would happen if the gag order came out? Well, I would have to remove that live anyway. And I would probably have to remove anything else that I had published. I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't know how I would have to find out how it is with the US, but in general, I would have to wipe it to keep my side clean. Okay, I think I'm going to, let's watch this together. Oh no, I have to get headphones. Okay, let me put you on Phoebe cam. I'll be back. I don't know where they are, so bear with me. Okay. Settings, audio. Awesome. Kevin, wait, why is there tomatoes? Is this a food fight? I left you guys for a few minutes and you got into a virtual food fight. Hmm. That's probably better. Okay, and then dynamic camera grid. Got it. Excuse me, random man number 2. Oh, you guys can't see that. Okay.
Good evening, everybody.
Okay, I found it.
And Ms. Mathis. We've got Mr. Thompson, Ms. Jennings representing the state. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I think we have Mr. Nye and Ms. Beatty on Zoom. Anybody else on Zoom? Ms. Taylor?
No, Mr. Logston is not going to be on Zoom today. He had the other hearing.
Ms. Beatty made it apparently. So, and I have also, you have Mr. Edelman, Dr. Edelman here today.
I do, Your Honor.
Okay. Great. So I think what we're doing today is just a continuation about the questions, particularly on the surveys and where we go from here. You did drop off a sealed exhibit, right? Anything to say about this, or just?
Yes, Your Honor. That sealed exhibit goes with one of our discovery requests, that the exhibit that outlines what we're requesting has to be under seal. And so I had to hand deliver that to the court. A copy was hand delivered to the state. It is not up for discussion today.
Okay, great. Thank you. One other thing to just tie up is the order unsealing the state's motion for order prohibiting contact with prospective jurors. There was a discussion between both of you about redacting a particular sentence, maybe last time, and so that we were going to take care of that.
I didn't, Ms. Taylor indicated that there was a sentence she thought we might want to consider redacting. I haven't heard back on that. And I know that she's been busy on other things since the 6th.
We want to just talk to each other for a second.
I understand the microphones in the courtroom are very sensitive. Perhaps we should do this after court today and go ahead and do the testimony of Dr. Edelman first. And I'd be happy to talk to the state afterwards.
Thanks. All right, so is that where we're starting now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Actually, Judge, I think we need to discuss the preliminary matters first.
Okay, go ahead.
As Your Honor indicated just a moment ago, this is a continuation of where we were on the 6th. And the issues on the 6th and the issues that we have here today is first, whether there was a violation of the non-dissemination order. And if so, where do we go forward from that point? And I think it was clear from our discussions on the 6th that the facts
Dissemination order is gag order.
specific questions did violate the order. I realize that the defense would like to proceed with those questions. That's perhaps an issue for today. But I just wanted to define what we're looking at today, because about 10:45 this morning, we got what was up on the screen there, a PowerPoint that apparently Mr. Edelman prepared. And as I understand, I don't think Ms. Taylor got it until sometime this morning herself. That's the information that I was given. And we have concerns because a large part of this PowerPoint deals with the issue of the change of venue itself, which is we are not prepared to address. It is not before the court at this time. It's premature. And I don't think that it should be part of this record as we proceed forward today. And so the state took a copy of preparing a printout of the PowerPoint. It doesn't take long to look through it. Perhaps the court might want to take a look at that before we proceed, at least with eliciting things from the tower. And I realize it's last minute, but the last time that we presented something to the court in advance, Ms. Taylor complained profusely, and I realized it was only 11:45 when we got this today, and so we just figured we would raise it with you now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Ms. Taylor?
Your Honor, I would disagree with counsel that the court made a determination that we violated the non-dissemination order. In my mind, that issue is very right for the court today, as is where do we go from here with the survey? Dr. Edelman has made himself available in court to explain the survey, the process of the survey, why it works, how long it's been used, how widely it's used, and what it doesn't do, and what it does do to present the court with some options to make a decision where we go from here. Whether the court decides we violated the non-dissemination order or not is up for discussion, and we're prepared to further argue that, but we think you need to hear the testimony first. As far as this PowerPoint, I had access to Dr. Edelman yesterday afternoon, and we worked on it late. I didn't have a final copy to give to the state until this morning, so they have it. We are not arguing venue now. We're talking about survey and how that relates to our change of venue motion. We know we're arguing the venue change later, but we have work that we still need to do. And that's where we are today, and would ask to present our PowerPoint and present our testimony with Dr. Edelman as we've prepared to do.
Okay. Taylor, so,
Actually, Your Honor, Ms. Taylor still has a copy of the PowerPoint that made available to the court.
okay, so it seems like this happens to me in this case, that there's an argument about whether I should go ahead on something or provide some information that I don't see yet. So I feel like sometimes I'm making decisions that are I'm in the blind here. So I'm gonna look this over. Any problem with that, Ms. Taylor?
Well, Judge, give me just 1 second. Your Honor, the purpose of the PowerPoint is to inform the court about the questions in the survey and the purpose of them. I can tell the court that showing up every time we want to have a hearing and have to fight to have the actual hearing is something I haven't experienced before either. There is nothing in that PowerPoint that the court can't hear today when making the decision.
Random note, can you guys see the banner? Because I was just messing around with it. I don't know if it's actually showing up.
About where do we go from here, and did I violate the non-dissemination order? There's just nothing wrong with the process that we're doing here, and you're continually being asked to say there's something wrong with what we're doing. We're 10 after 4. I have a witness who's traveled here today, and we're ready to go.
All right, Your Honor, just to clarify, as we made clear last time we report, we are not saying Ms. Taylor herself violated the non-dissemination order. We're saying that the people who prepared the survey and disseminated the survey and called citizens of Latah County with those fact-specific loaded questions violated the non-dissemination order, and they are agents of the defense. So I don't want this to become personal between Ms. Taylor and myself. We are not alleging Ms. Taylor has done anything wrong. We are dealing with reality that this survey was conducted on, as we understand it, 400, I'll say, innocent citizens of Latah County who were force-fed information that they may or may not have had about this case before they were called by the surveyor takers. And they are loaded questions. Some of the questions are factually wrong. They simply aren't true. That's what we're here about.
And that's what we're prepared to address, Your Honor. That's why we have a witness here. And if there's violation of the non-dissemination order, it's me. I'm the one that's bound by it. And the court just needs to hear about this process instead of hearing the conclusion that the state wants the court to reach.
Number one, I'm past that. I'm not going to violate you. I mean, this was a communication problem with Dr. Edelman not getting the order. One of the things I think that maybe needs to clear up, not for counsel, but maybe the public, is that one of the terms in that, and this is in the ethics, right, is what is the public record? Public record is not traditional media. It's not social media. It's not what anyone might say in public. Okay, that's the problem that we're kind of balancing here, because the public record is a case that is available to the public in this case. I mean, I think we can all agree with that. No?
No.
You think the public record is whatever the media comes out?
Your Honor, I think it's what's in the public, and what's in the public is derived from the act.
So I actually agree with her, because if it's public record, then as the media, I have access to it and I can use it. So if you put it into the public record, you're technically also putting it into the media in a way. And I can totally understand why she'd think that, because what happened when they posted this stuff, like, it came out in the media, or we wouldn't all know about it. Also, if you mention social media and it's posted on YouTube, if you're putting it on YouTube and public record, then it is on the media and social media. I hope that makes sense.
The affidavit that supported probable cause to arrest Bryan Kohberger. That's the first document that the court finds in the whole cases of interest on Idaho State Supreme Court's website. That document has a ton of
I forgot to say as well that I put that link of all of the documents available, all of them, that's in my description. So if you want to see what is out there on public record, then you can check it out. I originally had them open and I was thinking of summarizing them, but there's so much and I just am not a lawyer. So I decided to rather just go with what I understood.
of information in it that relate to the questions in the survey for the case specific questions. So that document became public record, and that was spread far and wide all over the place and reported and interpreted repeatedly. That's the public record. That's where the questions came from. There's no violation of the non-dissemination order if that's what we're going to talk about today, but I think the court should hear from our witness and understand a little bit more about this survey process.
I'm very interested in that. I told you last time that I'm interested in what you have to say about this, but so you're saying that the public record, though, comes out of the case, right? That's public.
I'm saying in this case, that's exactly what happened, Judge. I don't want to argue the finer points of what's in the media, but I'm saying in this case, that's exactly what happened. Is that affidavit's there, and this court knows we have a ton of things that are filed under seal and more things that are not filed under seal. But that affidavit that began this case has been shared far and wide, and media stories have.
Just pausing to say the notes that I made about him, about Bryan Kohberger, is speculations. He was looking for input from criminals so he could commit the crime. The reality, he was studying criminology. The research that he was doing was consistent with schoolwork. Speculation, he was stalking the victims. We're going to hear about that in this court hearing. But the reality is, speculation, he was constantly up weird hours of the night, and therefore something's weird. Reality, he was studying and teaching. I think he spoke about having insomnia. I know he had anxiety, white snow, I think was what they called it. And in my opinion, has OCD tendencies, and I'm OCD diagnosed. I can't diagnose him, but I think there's some things that I would see similarities in, which is also when people are like, why was he wearing gloves? Something must be shady there. I'm sorry, I have a hair attached to my mascara. Oh, finally. And so why was he wearing gloves with the rubbish or the whatever? And that's shady. There must be something shady going on there. Well, family members spoke about him having compulsions around cooking utensils and pots with contamination. And with OCD, you can have a lot of compulsions about contamination because your brain essentially spirals into intrusive thoughts, and it's like a rabbit hole that you can't climb out of. So that's not even dodgy to me, but that's speculation. And that is something that then all of those adding up with the media unable to remove the speculations and add the fact, it makes him look dodgy. He's stalking the victims. He's wearing gloves at night. He's up all weird hours. Who's awake all night? He's vacuuming. Like, I'm sorry, Jane, whatever, Karen, whoever lived above him. Sometimes I need a vacuum in the middle of the night because sometimes my brain says, if I don't do this now, I'm going to be overcome with allergies and I'm going to have a coughing fit and no one's going to know. And I'm not saying like, I'm not leaning to innocent or guilty on either side because he hasn't been to trial. He is still innocent unless proven guilty. But these are things that, you know, they're all speculation. Exactly, Bagdago. It's all allegedly. It is all absolutely speculation that they cannot counter with facts if there is a gag order. My neck's tense. I think I'm like tense just thinking about it. Oh, and the other point I made about if someone's wrongfully accused. Imagine Kohberger isn't the guy. Even if the trial goes on, the amount of people who have seen things about him, who have come to these conclusions, you can see it in comment sections everywhere. He can never have a normal life ever again. Whether he did it or not, it's out there. And it cannot be shut down without facts.
Have generated. When you understand how Dr. Edelman does his work to determine if a survey even needs to happen, you'll know where the information came from.
Okay, so I'm understanding, okay, the initial probable cause affidavit is part of the public record. And you're saying, well, that got spread, okay, by the media, as you would accept. And that's something that could be concerned. So what I think Mr. Thompson is talking about, though, is information or questions that were not in the record. And so what I'm nervous about this is I don't want to continue to spread things out that shouldn't be spread. And so I don't know what's in the slides, but if there's information in the slides that are not in the public record, that really have not been disseminated generally, then I mean, I don't really want to spread it. None of us want to spread it more than necessary.
Well, last week in court, that was right inside the courtroom. That all became part of the public record. The 9 questions were stated repeatedly in different formats by Mr. Thompson. That's part of the public record. We've been accused of violating the non-dissemination order. Dr. Edelman's reputation has been impugned by what was stated about him repeatedly. Those questions are fair game. But having this hearing and allowing our expert to talk about this process, that's not the problem. The problem with the media happened a long time ago, and it started with the sharing of the affidavit far and wide.
I understand. About this, what is not true, okay? I mean, I guess we can just say, well, it's not true on some of these questions. Maybe that helps to reduce bias, but if we don't make that clear, then it could increase bias. I think. I don't know, tell me, maybe
Well,
I'll hear this from the expert.
I'm going to say it like this. Mr. Kohberger is my client, and his rights are of the utmost importance to me. Him being treated fair, his presumption of innocence, him having an impartial jury, those are important things to me, as is his right to counsel. I am not standing up here saying, let me tell you about this survey. Let me finish this survey to hurt him. I'm saying there is pervasive media coverage in this case. It's prejudicial media coverage. We've conducted a survey in Latah County. That survey is going to
If I agree and nod my head anymore, it's going to come off my shoulders. I 1000% agree. To this point, most of the media coverage has only been able to feed into why he's guilty. And this goes way back to what I said about the jury and presumption. If you're in court, you must have done something wrong. Couple that with how big this story is. I mean, I wasn't even trial watching when this happened, and I came across it while I was on holiday. It's a big story, and both sides have not been able to present their facts. So it's a big, big problem, especially if a gag order tends to lean more to the one side than the other. For example, one thing that I made a note of is that the families want to be able to speak out. And I have no problem with that, provided Kohberger and counsel can also. It has to be both or none. And I will not choose none. But you can't just have the victims' families. I mean, think of the Kansas guys that allegedly overdosed outside their friend's house. Their family members were basically on a witch hunt for the friend for a long time. And it turned out they had overdosed. They had seemingly taken it themselves. He could potentially have had less than them. Like, they kept bringing up that he's a scientist. The dude is a data scientist. You can do that from home. That's surrounding numbers. You know, everything just got twisted a little more, a little more. That's the danger of only one side being able to have a say.
To show bias and that you shouldn't have a trial in this county. What I'm trying to do is say, do you want me to give you information about another place where maybe the bias isn't so great, where maybe Mr. Kohberger can have a fair trial? I'm his advocate. I want to help him. I believe in his innocence. I'm not going to stand in this court.
And why would the judge not want to hear that? What is a good reason to not hear that? If it's been done, why not hear it out?
Courtroom and do anything wrong to him at all. I need you to hear the information so you can make a decision, to have the surveys, to have the information when we come back here for change of venue and make a decision on all of the information. Right now, if we come in and do our change of venue, we're going to say you can't have this jury in Latah County, but I can't tell you a better place that will protect him better. And that's what I want to do.
Any response, Mr. Thompson?
We aren't here to argue about venue today. We aren't here to argue about what this particular survey with the loaded questions, fact-loaded questions, may have produced in Latah County residents. As we mentioned last week, the structure of those questions assumes that every person that is called has heard all of the media in this case. And we know that that just simply isn't true. So for those citizens in this...
Just for the record, I don't like that they did this survey. It does feel a little like tainting the jury pool. I don't know every single fact about it. I haven't watched this entire thing, but it does feel a little strange. However, if I was that judge, I would probably say, well, action, meet consequence. You put these things out there, this is the consequence. People know this stuff because why? It was in your records. That's where they got it from. You didn't want them to know? Shouldn't have put it in there.
In this county, who have not heard all of the rumors, who have not been following the media, who haven't inspected the court record, who are essentially ignorant of facts in this case, well, that's just been jaundiced by the questions that were asked. They have now been force-fed facts, some of which are not true, some of which would not be offered in court, in fact, probably wouldn't legally be admissible in court, to somebody who may never have heard them before. That's the state's concern about the way this thing is put together. And the arguments from the defense seem to be completely ignoring that point. That there are people out here who don't know all the things that they were being asked, and by asking the fact-specific questions, we were inoculating them with information that they didn't have before about this case that could affect their ability to sit as jurors. It's just simply irresponsible. It doesn't make sense.
This is one of the things that I was thinking about, is maybe we can inoculate by saying you can't rely on any of this information. It's not established by evidence. It's not been provided in court. But to just send a message out to be clear that these questions have nothing to do with guilt or innocence or even truth.
But that's not what was done, Judge.
I know. We have to fix this in some way.
Yes, sir.
That's what you said last time. And so I just want to help the public understand that this is not the trial.
Your Honor,
Yes.
at this rate, we may never get to trial. We know this isn't the trial. We brought Dr. Edelman to talk about the process, which will answer the state's concerns about this process. He hasn't even had a chance to tell you how this is constructed. He's the one that's the doctor of this kind of work. He's the one that's the professional. He's the one that knows how to do this. He's the one that spent his career understanding surveys and how to construct these. You need to hear from him. Going back and forth.
This is all, in my opinion, allegedly not fact, whatever else. I think that the prosecution is so sure that this is a done deal that they can't be open to possibilities. I think that they are in a stage of confirmation bias.
Forth between what Bill thinks and what I think doesn't matter. What matters is you hearing from the expert to make a decision. He's here, he's ready to testify. We're 20 minutes into this hearing and he hasn't been allowed to take the stand yet. He came to inform the court about this process.
Well, there's no question I'm gonna let him testify. I just wondered about what's in this. I haven't looked at this, but it's, you're comfortable having this come out into the public?
Yes, after last week's hearing, absolutely.
Okay, and you looked at it, Mr.
We
Thompson?
have concerns,
Is
Judge.
it alarming?
Well, part of what's in there is,
Well, it doesn't match up with the stuff that I wanted to put into the public, so she can't. Also just my opinion.
a part of the survey study being published now, if this comes to the public without any comparison to anything else. And it's the product of these loaded questions. It takes us back to the fundamental issue of how this survey was conducted and the assumption that the people who were being called already knew all this stuff. And so it didn't hurt to specifically ask them, have you heard about such and such, the specific item? Well, if they hadn't heard about it before, they sure as heck have heard about it now. That's the core concern that led us to this in the first place. We don't dispute the defense doing a survey. I said that last week. Please do a survey, but don't go around screwing with the knowledge that prospective jurors have or may not have. That's our concern. And Your Honor, when we parted ways last week, the court said, Ms. Taylor, talk with Mr. Edelman and see what the options are. Well, my understanding from the email I received day before yesterday is the survey cannot be changed. That was from Ms. Taylor reporting what Dr. Edelman said. I interpret that as they don't want to change it. Anything can be done, but that's where we're left. I would have been happy to engage in.
It'll be important when you hear how many people were involved in this survey, why, when it comes to like a few days before this, the survey can't be changed.
Discussion with defense about maybe some middle ground, but the line has been drawn black and white. I am concerned about the specific things that relate to venue, partial survey results that are in this PowerPoint. I believe it is premature for them to come out now. The rest of it is fine. Let's bring it out so that you have whatever information you want. You can give it the weight that you decide. I just didn't want to let this willy-nilly come into the public record in a half-baked fashion.
I have lots of concerns. We're not left with this because I have to make a decision about several things.
Yes, sir.
And so in order for me to have the most informed decision, I need the information. So then just go ahead. All right.
Thank you.
And you can show your slides, and if something is concerning, we can talk about it along with it. All right. So are you ready to call your witness? I think you are.
I am. I'm ready to call Dr. Bryan Edelman.
Okay, Dr. Edelman, if you could please come forward, face the clerk, raise your right hand. There you go.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
All right, thank you, sir. If you could please,
That sounded a bit like AI swearing in.
take your seat there. And then once you're comfortable, please state your name and spell your last.
It's Bryan Edelman, BRYAN EDELMAN.
Thank you. Ms.
Thank you.
Taylor.
Good afternoon, Dr. Edelman.
Good afternoon.
What do you do for a living?
I work as a trial consultant, and also I do quite a bit of work as an expert witness in the field of pretrial publicity and change events.
Are those two separate roles?
Yes, they are.
What do you do when you're a trial consultant?
So as a trial consultant, you're an advocate for your client. You do mock trials, focus groups, to really try to develop a trial strategy, a trial.
Pause. I forgot to say this. This witness allegedly normally testifies for the state, but in this case did not want to, wanted to rather be for Kohberger.
Trial story for your side and cultivate that for the audience, the jury. We also do jury selection. I assist with writing voir dire questions, juror questionnaires, help ferret out bias during voir dire, recommend cause challenges and how to use peremptories. Do post-trial interviews. I do jury-related research, present my findings at conferences, bar associations, law firms, and so on.
When you work as an expert in the field of change of venue, does that differ from your work as a trial consultant?
Absolutely.
How so?
Well, as I mentioned, as a trial consultant, you're retained to be an advocate. As an expert, you are retained to be an objective expert, which means I'm not advocating for either side. I do not advocate for the defense. I do not advocate for the prosecution. My role is to collect information using standard methods that have been widely accepted in the field, and then present the findings to the court so they can make a well-informed decision on.
Thanks, Bagdugger. I forgot I was eating crunchy food. Okay, it's on now. Amateur hour. Anyway, this is what a journalist is, essentially summed up perfectly. Not advocating for either side, presenting all the information that has been collected to the best of their ability so that the court can make a well-informed decision. A journalist is supposed to be someone who is collecting all the information that they have available without any advocating for a certain side or the other and presenting it to the public so that they can make a well-informed decision. How did this guy land up being taken in the court? They saw him as pro-defense. Was he intending to be pro-defense? No, he wasn't. He was presenting his facts.
On whether or not any remedial measures are necessary. There are times where my findings support what remedial measures, like a change of venue, and there are times they don't. And when they don't, I recommend against a change of venue, whatever the data supports where I go.
I want to understand a little bit about your educational background that allows you to do that work.
Okay.
How were you educated?
I'm sorry?
How were you educated? What degree?
Starting in grammar school.
We can skip to college.
Yeah. So I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from Florida State University. From there, I attended the University of Nevada in Reno, where I studied social psychology. My particular interest was in the application of social psychology in the field of a legal arena. So I was really interested in juror decision-making, jury decision-making, group dynamics, how people process information and evidence, the impact on pretrial publicity, pre-existing attitudes, and that sort of thing. The school I went to really focused on that area. That's where the National Judicial College is, the Grant Sawyer Center for Justice Studies, and several professors in that.
I feel a career change coming on for me again. Actually, I'm joking. We don't have juries here, so I don't need to. But if I had heard this when I was trying to choose a career, I probably would have tried to go into something like this. This is very cool. It's a very nice media meets law.
In that field. So I conducted research at the Grant Sawyer Center for Justice Studies. I helped run a program through the Department of State that brought in judges and attorneys to the United States, where they would travel around the country to meet with people in their field. So I worked with the National Judicial College in that regard as well. And then from there, when I finished my PhD, I got a Rotary Scholarship to study in the United Kingdom, where I got an LLM in International Humanitarian Law, which I do not use.
During the course of your career, have you been published?
I have. I've been published in this area of survey methodology. My research was on the death penalties.
Just wanted to bring this up. Started watching the Treehouse trial. I'm at Paula's testimony. Oh my heavens, so sad. So I don't know if you know, Paula actually passed away shortly after she gave that testimony. So it was like her final Like she had waited the whole time to do it. And I think also that's my chair. I keep knocking. Sorry. I think that was like as sad as it was. Like it gave me icky feelings. I didn't like how Tucker was talking to it. Felt a bit weird, but I can understand why he tried to push through because it clearly was very, very important that she have that say. I am definitely wanting to see how he goes about that with the second one because they can't do the hospital thing. And also, to my understanding, they really did a dirty, the judge did a dirty with her testimony because there were ways to go about it. And instead, it was what it was. And yeah, but I've got Tucker's whole trial. I'm going to deep dive into the gag order, what we saw, what was out there, what wasn't out there. And potentially I might chat to him down the line and release that part after the trial. So yeah, I might grab some clips of the Treehouse trial where it stood out to me, but I don't want to promise too much because this is currently a hobby, and like the prep I did for today took me hour and a half maybe, and then it's like 2 or 3 hours of streaming. So I'm hoping to, but I can't absolutely promise I'll be able to add clips and that sort of thing.
So I have a book published on the death penalty. I am the co-editor in California. There's something called the CEB, the Continuing Education of the Bar. And there's a criminal procedure book that comes out every year. It's kind of like the Bible for criminal procedure. And I'm a co-editor on the chapter on change of venue. I was also on the committee for the American Society of Trial Consultants that publishes professional guidelines for writing change of venue surveys. So I'm on that. And I've also done research on, one of the questions is always, well, why can't we just pick a jury in a high profile case? So I've done research on the use of the set aside question. So if people have been inundated with a lot of prejudicial media coverage, how do they respond to that set aside question? Do we see, for example, if somebody's been exposed to a lot of prejudicial coverage, you'd expect them to say, I cannot be fair and impartial, I know too much. And so we're looking at research on that as well. And then last thing I promise is, I've also done research on what's called minimization language. So when you ask people an open-ended question on a juror questionnaire or in voir dire in a high-profile case, this is the only standard question, what have you read, seen, or heard about this case? That's the open-ended question. And people minimize what they know. That's something Dr. Ed Bronson came up with because he had noticed it. And that's like using language such as,
I need to remember to circle back to that minimizing language. I feel like that would be a good conversation about the jury, my concerns with the jury, etc. I have so many documents saved to go over, but today just had to be about freedom. Sorry.
I only recall what was in the paper, or I just followed it. I just remember it was on the news. They don't really elicit a lot of information. It's minimized knowledge. So did research on that.
That's been part of your research?
Yes.
When you work as an expert, if you're hired as an expert to work on a change of view issue, and I think you told us how your work is different than when you're a trial consultant. Can you tell me how you start in that role as an expert for change of venue?
Yeah. So first of all, I've been doing this for about 15 years, I'd say, as an expert witness on this area.
On change of venue specifically? Okay. And to do with surveys, just to be clear?
Yes. From some of the surveys, sometimes just post-conviction. Once again, I've done federal cases, state cases, multiple states, including Idaho. But the way I learned was from Dr. Ed Bronson, who was kind of the pioneer in the field. He worked on cases like the Oklahoma City bombing case and a host of other product ones, the Boston Marathon, a bunch of them. So he was kind of my mentor in this area. And there's a 3-stage process. So the first phase is collecting the media coverage. Is really the question is initially, is there extensive coverage and is there prejudicial coverage? So I collect the coverage and assess the nature of that coverage. Does it include inflammatory language? Does it include inadmissible or misinformation? Now, just because it's not true does not mean people don't see it, and it does not mean that they don't develop opinions based on that information. So it's very important. In fact, some of that stuff is the most prejudicial stuff that there can possibly be. For example, if there is a prior conviction and then the conviction's thrown out, well, that's pretty prejudicial for the new trial. Not admissible, but very prejudicial. So I'm looking for information like that. I'm looking for references to prior records. Maybe they're victim impact statements where people victims' families may be suggesting what the outcome should be. That could be prejudicial. How did the community respond? Are there candlelight vigils? Are there, GoFundMe efforts going on?
By quick account, I know lots of people are just listening, not able to comment, but if you go quick fire answer, from everything you've seen so far, is Ryan Kohberger guilty? Quick answer, don't think about it, just put it out there. My quick answer is no, but you don't have to agree with me. And I actually like it when people don't agree with me. Much like the lawyer, I like disagreeing with him just to have a good, I like a back and forth. I like to see other people's sides. Not guilty, says Krista Selena. That's interesting. I thought it was going to be very, very much toward the guilty, not proven. See, but also here, we're people who are in the true crime community. Sorry, I saw a message in the group, in our complex group, and it caught my eye, but it's a dog. They found somebody's dog is lost. Guilty, says Cicchini. I think that everything that's out there has been leaning to guilty, which concerns me. It should be leaning to not proven.
The status of the victims and focusing on that. So there's a gambit of things that we look at. Sometimes there's political elements that are important in high profile cases because it might be that a politician's involved. So it just depends on the case. So the first thing is assessing the nature of the publicity. Now, if there's not a lot of extensive pretrial publicity and it's not prejudicial, it stops there. And that's happened where there's coverage, but it's very superficial. It's very neutral. There's not a lot of detail. There's nothing particularly impactful. Maybe it's focused primarily on just the victim or something like that. However, there are other cases where there is extensive pretrial publicity, and then I would recommend phase 2, which is a community attitude survey. Because just because there's prejudicial coverage does not mean it had an impact on the jury pool. And that is the question that matters most. What impact has the prejudicial media coverage had on the jury pool? I don't really care if it's correct information, it came from social media, it came from the news. It had an impact on the jury pool. That's what matters, because they develop opinions and attitudes. And it doesn't make a difference if that fact's true or false. They still develop an opinion and an attitude about the defendant, about the evidence, and perceptions of guilt. All of that is what I'm looking at. So I want to see if the media.
It's like hearing myself rant about juries. I love it. I also love how clearly there's zero focus on a Saturday because there's just food fights going on. And I'm like deep in this like media coverage, blah, blah, blah. And there's a side chat. I definitely have a bias based on what I've consumed. I'm always open once trial starts. And it's good to know that, like I 100% believe that everyone has bias because you can't just unlearn what you've learned. Everything you grow up knowing and learning along the way will give you a bias. There's nothing we can do about that. We cannot cancel that out. That's not how the whole thing works. That's not how brains work. There is another note that I made that the link will also be in the description, but it is the site. Sorry, boss. Which is a very cool resource. We use it. They've actually sponsored a few of the channels that I work on. This is not sponsored for me, though. I just like it. It's ground news. Basically, when you look, let me see if I can share it. Just want to make sure that I'm not logged in as the work one. Yeah, I'm not. So basically, they will say like, I want to choose one that's not incredibly political, but that's proving difficult. Okay, let's look at the tornado. You can see here, this station, Wish TV, leans more to the left. These are center. And then you can see under 53% left coverage, 15 sources, 71% center, 53% center, 100% center, 100% left. And you can kind of see from there, if we were to go, I don't want to use politics, but it's going to be the easiest to show. It's going to be easiest to show the split. Okay, so covered most by left, center, lean left, center. Then if you look underneath, it says blind spots. Some of these are things you didn't think of. And then it'll show like 100% right, 44% right, 100% center. And you can see which articles you're actually going to get balanced news on. And it's pretty accurate. Like I've checked it with some of our local, and I've also checked it with some of the stories I've written. And I found it is pretty balanced. The only thing is I don't know how much you can do with a free trial. Hey, Ground News, if you see this, I'm open to a sponsorship. Then I'll get a discount code and give you guys a discount code.
Media coverage does have an impact, and that's why we do a community attitude survey. And then depending on the results of the survey, there's not enough evidence there to suggest that anything is required. It could be remedial measures such as individual sequestered blood deer. Maybe that's appropriate in some cases, all the way to the extreme case where it might be a change of name.
I want to understand a little bit about the source of media you review to do your work. Can you tell me what you take a look at?
I always take a conservative.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, I need to object. This PowerPoint is being played for everybody with no foundation. It's not an exhibit. I think that's improper. I mean, I'm trying to listen to Dr. Edelman's testimony, and I keep seeing slides changing in front of me over here, and I don't think that's appropriate.
Well, you've seen the slides.
I have.
You looked at
But
them.
everybody else here hasn't.
What I'm seeing here, though, is just an explanation of
I nearly choked on my chocolate. Oh my gosh. Your Honor, I'm trying to listen, but there's things moving in front of my eyes. And I just can't not read the things moving. You need to stop distracting us with this slide. I mean, I was like, okay, yeah, fair point. It's not in evidence. 100%. But then when he carried on, I was like, dude, the slides just say what he's saying. It's not like there's nothing different about it. And you need to understand prejudice. You're looking at this from the prosecutor point of view, when you're supposed to be looking at it without anyone being in favor. What this guy is saying is how he collected his data. He's a witness. It's just on the banner.
how he goes about in surveys.
Understand that. That's what his testimony is. But we're getting this visual aid. There's no foundation for it, Judge.
Well,
It just seems.
well, hold on. I'm viewing him as an expert. Okay?
Yes, sir.
He's explaining what he does. So I'm going to.
No problem with that. The PowerPoint's a problem. I don't have any problem with his testimony.
Your Honor, he used PowerPoint, not Canva. It's offensive. No one uses PowerPoint. It's 2024. He should have used Canva. At least Google Slides. I mean, come on.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Frankly, I've never seen something like this
that,
occur.
that objection. I mean, this is not necessarily factual. It's just an example of how he got to where he got.
That's his testimony, but the PowerPoint is different, Judge. I don't know why we're seeing the PowerPoint when we have his testimony.
You want to respond to that?
I do,
Okay.
Judge. This is a courtroom demonstrative aid that helps to track the testimony of Dr. Edelman. I can hand in my computer and let him advance the screens if that makes a big difference in it. This just helps explain his testimony.
Judge, we don't have to read her. Let's just proceed.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Dr. Edelman, we were talking about where you get your information.
We were talking about the what?
Where you get your information. What media do you look at? I think that's where.
Yes. So I take a conservative approach to how I do it. I look at newspapers in the local coverage. So I'm interested in papers that have primary circulation in the venue. Case like this has been reported in many other newspapers, but I wouldn't, for example, look at a newspaper published in Dallas because I don't know if some.
Okay, I think in light of this, I will make sure that my future videos are done on Canva as for demonstrative purposes, and that they really just have one stock photo and words. I will no longer use Google Docs.
If somebody in Laytown County would be looking at a paper in Dallas. So I look at the local coverage. I try to look at like local television coverage to see what the community is likely exposed to.
While we're here, I want to ask you some questions about the non-dissemination order. That's been a hot topic, and we've heard some of it again today. Are you aware that there's a non-dissemination order in this case?
Yes.
How did you become aware of it?
Well, the first time I became aware of it was when I was reading the newspaper coverage, because that was one of the topics of media coverage, was discussing the non-dissemination order and media's efforts to have it changed. So I was able to read it and follow it in that media coverage. So that's the first time I saw it.
And in January, did you receive an email from my office with the non-dissemination order?
I believe I did.
And you looked at a hard copy again recently?
Yes.
All right. Does that non-dissemination order change how you did your work?
I'm sorry, can you repeat
Does the existence of the non-dissemination order change how you did your work?
No, it did not.
Have you worked in cases where there's a non-dissemination order at other times?
Many times.
Was the sole source of the information that you use contained in the media?
Was it came from the media? Sorry. Yes. Everything I used was widely disseminated through the media. Widely.
I didn't know if that was me doing something on Canva. I just panicked because I thought I had started playing my Canva thing that I was sharing. Oh, my heart. Okay, let's hope this doesn't get a copyright. Let me make sure that I am really half and half on the view here. Let's do that one.
The media.
Was it came from the media? Sorry. Yes. Everything I used was widely disseminated through the media. Widely disseminated.
Did you find out where the media got the information?
Yes.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Bill Thompson. I'm the Laytown County prosecutor. And it's sad to be here, but happy to be here at the same time.
Turn it up. I can't hear.
Kohberger,
Well, I'm gonna do my best to turn this up.
Yeah, you have to.
If I put the microphone up, is that better?
So,
Nope.
but Christy, you don't have to type things that are recorded.
let me preface, there's a pending case now in court, and I and my office and the investigators have to live with the restrictions that our Supreme Court places on pretrial publicity. That said, I promise you we will share with you through the court process or otherwise whatever we are allowed to. I just appreciate your patience on that. The factual basis for the charges are summarized in what's called a probable cause affidavit that is on file with the court. According to the rules of the Idaho Supreme Court, that is sealed until Mr. Kohberger is physically back in Laytown County and has been served with the Idaho arrest warrant. At that
Objection. He doesn't even know his name properly. Can people who don't have the facts correct not present them to the media? Thank you.
time, we expect that that affidavit will be available to you So you can share the true facts with all of your readers and your watchers and your listeners and all the people who are interested and really need to know what's going on. So,
Your Honor, this Bill Thompson is very clearly looking for a man called Kohberger, and my client's name is Kohberger, so we would like him to be released. Thank you.
please have patience with us on that. We hope to get that to you as soon as we can.
Did
In
someone
that
say wow?
clip, you heard reference to the probable cause affidavit.
Yes,
And did you hear reference to sharing it with all your readers and watchers?
readers, watchers, and listeners, and anyone else who's interested.
Did your research tell you that the media took Mr. Thompson up on that offer to share this far and wide?
Yes,
Good afternoon, folks.
What did you see?
basically, the media took that document and then published the highlights and key findings in that document and added editorial commentary to that information. So let's be clear, they didn't just read the affidavit. There's editorial, there's debate, there's discussion, there's spin, all of it in news stories. And these stories, for example, this one has over 200, I'm sorry, I can't see it. Do you have a copy of the,
I do. Your Honor, I have a printed copy of his PowerPoint. If it would help him refresh his memory.
I just can't see it. Sure. Okay. Okay, thank you.
I want to find this. One sec.
So example, this one is on a local television station. On YouTube alone, 130,000 views and 224 comments. So people discussing. That's just one example of how this document was disseminated through the media in this county, just as Mr. Thompson suggested during his press conference.
And did you check another media source and see that it continued to be shared?
Yes, this is a second example. And you can see just from the heading, it says court records unsealed. And then they go through a timeline, including information from that affidavit, highlighting all the key findings about the car and other things that are widely reported and disseminated from that document. To later account, saturating the community with prejudicial details from that document, which was reported in the press conference to be truthful as well. 54,000 views, 176 comments on just one other video of a news clip on YouTube.
And based on your research, did the story or stories continue to be shared far and wide?
Yes,
Janelle Finch is joining.
cases received massive media coverage, saturating this county with prejudicial pretrial rules.
How about to social media?
It was also spread through social media, and people have talked about it on social media.
I hope he's going to include Reddit. If he doesn't, then we'll have to do our own deep dive and how Reddit fits into gag orders and into journalism in this day and age, I guess is a good way to put it.
And do you know if misinformation and rumors ended up as a result of this information shared right from the start?
Yes, and the reason I looked at this and knew it was because in the media coverage, they discussed the spreading of rumors on social media. For example, a professor who was accused by a psychic of being responsible for this. Other references.
If you don't watch the channel Markie, it's Callum Markie, but Markie. He did the whole drama of that psychic. That was wild.
To questioning the implication of people knew about the crime before it was reported to the police and so on. So there's been quite a bit of discussion, spread of the rumors, misinformation, factual information all over social media, which you'd expect in a small community such as this.
Yeah.
Did your review of all of this information tell you as a professional, as an expert in your field, that a survey was necessary in Bryan Kohberger's case?
Yes, based off of the media coverage that I reviewed, which was over 200 plus articles, and the television coverage, I thought it was appropriate to move forward to see what impact, if any, this coverage has had on the community.
What kind of survey did you think would be appropriate?
We always use random digit dial telephone surveys in these cases.
Before you tell me a little bit more about that, I want to understand the history of this kind of survey. Is this something that you just made up all on your own?
No.
Where does this come from?
So these surveys have been done for decades. The first one I recall that followed a similar design and focus on case-specific items was done in 1979. Constantinian King in 3 cases in Yolo County, California. This approach was done, Dr. Ed Bronson, who I mentioned, my mentor, had been using it for decades, 40 years or more. Other experts in the field do it. John Walker, in the American Taliban case, they used a similar approach that was published as well. Used in Skilling, Boston Marathon. I've used it in countless cases, so hundreds of times, I would say.
Is there research that supports this process?
There is. One of the things we're looking at, so when you think about the survey, is the structure and how we test validity. So there's 40 plus years of social science literature on the impact of media coverage on jury decision making. And one of the things it tells us, for example, is knowledge, or let's take a step back. People who regularly watch and listen to the news are more likely to know about the case. When I say know about the case, are more likely to have case-specific information from the media. So they test similar things like we did. Have you read, seen, or heard if ... And they assess how much knowledge does this person have, and then they correlate it with media consumption habits. And what you find is people that read the news regularly know more of these details than people who do not. And they find that the more information you have, the more likely you are to hold an opinion regarding a defendant's guilt or innocence. So those are some of the findings, and we craft the survey similar to the others because we want to test the validity of the survey. So if we know we should see these relationships, we should expect to see them in our survey. So we ask the same similar types of questions, and we look at those relationships to see if we see the same thing. That's one of the ways we test the validity of a survey.
Would this be considered a methodology in your field to do surveys in a certain format?
Yes, it's standard practice. We look at APOR, which is called the American Association of Public Opinion Research, American Society of Trial Consultants. They have professional code, how to conduct surveys, venue surveys. Those are the primary ones I look at. And again, I've taken course training during my program on how to craft surveys, how to write questions, all of that type of thing. I've done it hundreds of times, testified about it. So that's kind of the basis of how I craft this.
And I heard you mention standards and validity.
Mm-hmm.
Why are there standards? Why does that matter?
I'm sorry, why are there standards?
Yes.
Well, one is you want to make sure, as we learn more about research and human behavior, we learn more about what you should and shouldn't do. So for example, there's something called social desirability. People want to create a positive impression of themselves. So when you ask questions, for example, can you be a fair juror? Well, we all want to be fair people. So you're more likely to get a socially desirable response. The initial step on that was all the way back into voting. In California, there was an election for governor, I think it's Davis or something like that. And all of the polling suggested he was going to win. He was African American, and he lost.
Oh my gosh, this is why I don't ever mute on StreamYard, because then I just forget. What did I say? I said this goes back to the first live I did. I don't know if I can. I am literally Elaine with this muting and unmuting. So with radio, it's one button on the desk and then the light comes on. Whereas now it's on the computer and I keep forgetting. This goes right back to when I was doing my first live and I was talking about jury pools and the problem with a jury, like saying reasonable mind. What is a reasonable mind? A reasonable mind is fair. And what is fair? A reasonable mind is fair. I think the other part was like normal. What is normal and what is fair? So now you're asking, can you be fair in a jury trial? Well, I don't know. Because what's fair to you might not be fair to me. I've grown up very differently to you. You've grown up very differently to me. Neither of us will necessarily think that our way is wrong. So what is fair? What is reasonable? Don't know. Also, part of the reason why I took so long to rush back and turn on the mic is because I am busy creating a presentation much like this that just has random words, and you'll still need me to fill it in. You can't just watch it. So I was a bit caught up in that, just in case you're wondering.
And that was when it starts looking at that. And they saw all these different impacts in terms of like race of the interviewer. All these things affect how people respond. People overestimate that they vote because you can look at voting records and it's inflated. People overestimate they have a library card and a million other things. So those are things like we look at when we craft the survey. We don't want to have social questions that lead to socially desirable responses, order effects, a host of other things.
In your survey, it looks like you have sections designed in your survey.
Mhm.
Sorry, can you hear me? Okay.
Better with the microphone.
Okay, I'll try to stand closer over here. I want to understand this section, these sections. Why do you have sections in this survey?
Sections?
Yes.
Well, one is you don't want things to be jumping back and forth all over the place because it's harder to take a survey like that. You'll have more people drop off, confusion, potential order effects. So we try to organize the survey into sections. So all the key questions on one topic are together, and then the next section changes topic, so it's easy to follow.
What is the purpose of section 3, case awareness and prejudgment? Why is that in there?
So that's the meat of the survey. That's the most important section. So case awareness measures initially case recognition. We craft a recognition question based off of the media coverage. What are the things widely reported that are not overly prejudicial because you don't want to create an order that would stimulate a memory of, yes, I remember that case. So if widely reported A, B, and C facts that you read the coverage and you see this was mentioned 100 times, that's a widely reported fact. So we create case recognition question. Now, if somebody says, yes, I remember that case, I have read, seen, or heard about it, they are asked a prejudgment question next, guilt or innocence question. Then they're asked open-ended questions and then those case-specific items. Now, let's say someone does not remember the case based on the case recognition question. We give them one more fact to see if it'll stimulate a memory. Something neutral that might stimulate a memory. You usually get 1% to 2% more of that we call the case from there. If that person recognizes the case from there, they are also asked that prejudgment question to be continued. If they do not recognize the case, they skip the rest of the survey and they're asked demographic questions about media consumption habits and demographics. The next step of the survey after the prejudgment question is an open-ended question. What have you read, seen, or heard about the case? There might be a few others we add based off of these things we might find in the media coverage. And then they continue on to those case-specific items that we've been talking about. Have you read, seen, or heard if so and so?
I want to make sure I understand this and that this is clear for everybody. Those 9 questions that have been the problem last week and this week, if you have somebody who says, no, I don't know that case, do you ask them those 9 questions?
No, they skip to the demographic questions.
Tell me, what are the demographic questions, just to be sure?
If somebody doesn't recognize the case, they immediately go to questions, for example, how often do you read the newspaper? Every day, several times a week, rarely, never, something like that. Then they're asked how often they follow the local news, and then they'll ask a few demographic questions like age, gender, race, ethnicity.
So if somebody doesn't remember the case, you don't infuse information or do any of the things that were brought out last week.
No.
I have on the screen in front of me some of the read, seen, or heard questions.
Yes.
What are these? You don't have to read them all, just tell me what they are.
These are
Do you guys want to see my Canva art? My presentation? It's very quick. Full screen. Wait, go back to the first one. Share this tab instead. Okay. Oh no. This is my presentation. The most important characteristic shared. Whoa. Why? Be a good journalist. Have both sides. Do they affect a fair trial? I don't know. Too quick to answer. He was stalking them. He got crib notes from criminals. Thank you. Now be free. Can I be a jury expert now? Oh, I didn't push play.
There are 9 items, which we always use. Have you read, seen, or heard if? And these are items taken from the media coverage that were widely reported. And let me be clear, widely reported hundreds and thousands of times, and potentially prejudicial items. Because neutral, run-of-the-mill media coverage is often not grounds for a change of venue. So if somebody knew there were 4 victims, that's not particularly prejudicial, is it? That's a pretty benign fact. But if somebody knows, for example, about a prior conviction that's not admissible, that's very prejudicial, and it might be correlated with prejudgment. And I would like to know that, because if it's widely prejudicial and everybody knows about it, and it's correlated with prejudgment, that would likely have an impact on my recommendations, because that's the type of pretrial publicity that has been recognized by the Supreme Court, I'm sure the state court here, that is most concerning.
So these kinds of questions, these case-specific questions, you do this in all the surveys that you do.
Yes.
Okay, I want to please tell me my mic is on. Yes, it is. I want to answer these questions. Bryan Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. Yes. Yes. Oopsie. Yes. I think I've reached silly hour. Police found a knife sheath on the bed next to one of the victims. I don't know. Speculation. DNA found. Yes, it was touch DNA. Bryan Kohberger owns the same type of car recorded on the video in the neighborhood where the killings occurred. Well, I did see some people on Reddit that said it's not the same. Cell phone tower data show Bryan Kohberger made several trips near the victim's home in the month before the killings. Yes, because he was stalking them.
And in this case, these 9 questions came straight out of the media.
Absolutely. And again, widely reported.
Sadly, I take them every day and they're not even fun. They're just normal.
Throughout the media, thousands of times.
Now, just to be clear, you gave an example of information that might be widely reported that's highly prejudicial that you would use in a survey. You haven't talked about Bryan Kohberger's survey yet, have you? You haven't told us the 9 questions.
I have not.
Okay. And we'll get there, but I want to talk about a little bit more about the history of this survey. You told us it had been used for decades. And I think you told us a little bit about some of the other really high profile cases where this survey format, the survey method that's been widely accepted was used.
Then his slides are out of order because we just answered the survey relating to Kohberger. And then they have this.
Are some of these cases your cases that you've done these surveys in on this list?
Yes, I used the.
I'll have to save the silliness for rants and bants. Also, how far in are we? 57 minutes. I'm just going to give an early warning that I am losing focus so fast and I'm not going to be able to listen for that long. I might have to kick it over to tomorrow. I was thinking about talking about Snapchat and all of the lawsuits, but I don't have the brain capacity for another 2 hours 40 or something like that.
These types of questions in the George Floyd case for Alexander King, who was one of the defendants. There was also a gag order or non-dissemination order in that case. The Parkland shooting case in Florida, there was a non-dissemination order in that case. Used there as well. Used it in the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting case in Pittsburgh. State of Idaho v. Jonathan Renfro, which was here. State of Idaho v. Gilberto Rodriguez also used it there. And many others. I've used it 100 times. Dr. Bronson used it more than me because he was doing it even longer than I have. Other experts in the field do it. This is the standard practice.
Standard in your field.
Yes.
And are these surveys, doing a survey like this, is this just criminal defendants that ask you to do these surveys or that have any interest in doing these surveys, or is it other people too?
Other people use the same process as well, including the prosecution and the government.
I think you provided an example in your PowerPoint of the government using this survey process in a case that you worked on.
Yes, this was the Jason Van Dyke case in Chicago. He had been charged with shooting and killing Laquan McDonald. It was like 17 shots was like the famous saying. It was a very significant case, interracial crime, widely reported on. And the government also did their own survey to see if there was any potential bias and followed the same exact process and used case-specific media items. And once again, there was a non-dissemination order in that case.
Earlier, you talked a little bit.
Bugger, I listen to things on 2 times speed as a norm in general. And that's only because they don't have 2.5 or 3 times speed. But especially with like court hearings and that sort of thing, I normally speed it way up because I also find the pauses absolutely painful. It will help me in the interim, but it is 7:15. So I think like it's a fight against time for me to actually like have literally any concentration left. But let's see how it goes. I'm chilled to carry on, and if everyone loses focus at the same time, then we call it. Hey Evie, good to see you.
A little bit about validity being one of the standards.
Yes,
Tell me how you measure validity in one of these surveys.
sure. So this is from the professional code from the American Society of Trial Consultants. As I mentioned, we want to look at things like consistency. So we want to, for example, the research tells us the more case or media items you know, you develop knowledge. And the more you know, the more likely you are to exhibit bias. So I want to test that in the survey. That's one of the reasons why I include those case-specific items. I also want to compare what people for that item to prejudgment. So the more people know, are they more likely to prejudge? How about case-specific media items? Is there specific prejudicial items in the media that are particularly concerning? Maybe if I'm going to go back to my prior conviction example, if there was
I'm just noticing that I'm getting a bit of a lag. And if I remember correctly, somebody said that when StreamYard reaches 2 hours, they have a lag. I don't know if that's the case. If so, I might have to end and then we finish tomorrow or something like that. Let's see. I'm going to bump down the quality because I think we can all agree that we're not reading the screen as much. Oh my gosh, the lag is so laggy that it is currently not even picking up my click. Hello. What is happening? Can you please, guys? Page unresponsive. It just stopped. Ah,
into and why do you crime, why they reported on. And the government also did their own survey to see if there was any potential bias and followed the same exact process and used case-specific media items. And once again, there was a non-dissemination order in that case.
Earlier, you talked a little bit about validity being one of the standards.
Yes,
Tell me how you measure validity in one of these surveys.
sure. So this is from the
Ooh.
professional code from the American Society of Trial Consultants. As I mentioned,
I like this question. Validity, consistency between respondents' answers to open-ended questions about what they recall about the case. They could really do with some punctuation here. Consistency between respondents' answers to open-ended questions about what they recall about the case and their response to questions about recognition of specific case facts can be an indicator of survey validity. Well, first of all, if you ask the questions on your survey like this, then there's no doubt people are not going to understand because that's not a well-written question. Anyway, similarly, a positive relationship between case awareness and media exposure can also be an indicator of survey validity. False facts should generally not be used to test accuracy of other responses in venue survey. If false facts are used, they must be clearly false with no possibility that respondents who know about the case could confuse the false facts with true facts that have been publicized. Okay, I'm not entirely sure I follow, but anyway, those questions are worded so badly.
we want to look at things like consistency. So we want to, for example, the research tells us the more case or media items you know, you develop knowledge, and the more you know, the more likely you are to exhibit bias. So I want to test that in the survey. That's one of the reasons why I include those case-specific items. I also want to compare what people for that item to prejudgment. So the more people know, are they more likely to prejudge? How about case-specific media items? Is there specific prejudicial items in the media that are particularly concerning? Maybe if I'm going to go back to my prior conviction example. If there was a conviction, so had this happened in the case, and then years later, that conviction was thrown out and there's a new trial. Well, that's extremely prejudicial if people know about the prior jury verdict. So I want to know, what percentage of people know that detail? And is that related to prejudgment? And most importantly, when you ask the question, have you read, seen, or heard about the case, the open-ended question, do people report it?
I want to know where he got his questions and facts from. Because, first of all, if he got it from the defense and they weren't supposed to put it out there, then him asking these surveys could be a problem. If you got it from the prosecution, you're only seeing one side of it. And how do you say that it's a fact when it hasn't been proven in court? So that's a bit of a weird one for me, because how do you know which are false facts and which are true facts if you haven't been able to test the validity of the fact? So they're testing validity without having tested the validity themselves.
Because if they don't and they do know it, well, that's very concerning. And that's the type of problem we run into in voir dire.
Sounds like that's one of the reasons you have case-specific questions in there.
That's one of the reasons, absolutely.
You heard Pop last week, and then you heard it again today about, can't you just change this survey and take those case-specific questions out and then do the survey? Can you do that?
I would not do that now.
Can you explain why not?
Because this is based off of 15 years of doing this. I know for certain, and there's research on it as well, that when you ask people an open-ended question, what have you read, seen, or heard about the case? They have a difficult time recalling everything from memory. That's a recall question. The cognitive effort required to recall everything from memory that you know is very challenging versus recognition, which is a much lower cognitive load. Have you read, seen, or heard? Yeah. Oh, now I can search my memory. Yes, I know that fact. If I asked you, tell me everything you know about the movie Star Wars, you would tell me a whole bunch of interesting things about Chewbacca and Ewoks, and maybe a bunch of other stuff. But I am very confident that you would miss things. You would not tell me every single detail from memory you know about that movie. And then I would ask you something like,
Objection. No one talks about Chewbacca and Ewoks with Star Wars. You're obviously going to talk about Vader and lightsabers, obviously.
do you know that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father? You'd probably say, yeah, of course I knew that. But you didn't mention it in the recall question. There's a mountain of research on this. Usually what they
Well, mostly because Vader is father. So the clue is in the name.
do is they have people read like a paragraph or a story, and they ask them, write down everything you recall from what you just read. And then they do a different type of quiz. Did you read that the truck was red? Did you read that there was an ambulance? Oh yeah, of course. And they check that too. And what it shows is recognition rates, the ability to recall information when asked a closed-ended question is much higher than when you ask an open-ended question.
Listen, everything I know about Star Wars is by proximity because my family loves Star Wars so much, but I am not like a Star Wars person. I don't mind it. I wouldn't. Yeah, Evie, it is like when she points out in Pitch Perfect, I'm like, oh, that's so obvious. Afrikaans, which is one of the languages we speak here, is a mix of Dutch and German, and literally Vader, like that's God. I mean, that's it is also God if you were to pray in Afrikaans. That is father. So, and it's spelt similar. So it's obvious. But I love Pitch Perfect. Like she is me and I am her. The DJing, Titanium, radio station, that is, I love her.
So getting back to your comment or question, if I only ask, what do you read know about this case? I know for a fact you'll get things like, well, I remember when it happened. There were 4 victims. There was.
I know my brother thinks that the TV series should be not allowed in life because it's not on point. But we watched it in the order it was meant to be watched growing up. So I think it was 6. Oh, I've forgotten now. Anyway, you watch it backwards or something like that.
There was a knife. I remember there's a delay. I just saw it in the media. Those are the things that people say. They've said it in this survey. They've said it in 100 surveys I've done prior. They've said it in voir dire when I look at transcripts. That's what you see. But when
Jar Jar Binks is a good reason to watch because the way that he walks is like whenever I have my hair, like I used to have longer hair than I have now. Now it's a bob. But whenever I had long hair and I had it in like plaits or something, I had to like Jar Jar Binks my way through life. Also, I need to grab another drink. Try to behave yourselves because clearly today is not happening. Oh, I want to test something. Oops. Let's see. They had an option for music. Where was it? Okay, that's cool. That's their lo-fi. But I don't think it's copyright free. I really hope you can still see me, because that could be a disaster. Yeah, because I just grabbed a can, and we live in a single-story house, which is pretty normal here. We don't really. Some people have double stories, but it's a lot more normal to be single story. Also, our walls are made out of brick and concrete. Nothing to do with me grabbing a drink. Just some fun facts. Should we pause and just rants and bants? Pause on the thinky stuff, because I feel like all of our brains are tired. Go full screen, girl. There we go. So let's circle back to the idea that I mentioned in the beginning. I know a lot of people weren't here when I started, but what I was actually originally thinking of doing today is a battle to RA's rap. So like a response rap. Yeah, I do have my studio set up, finally. It's not exactly what I wanted. I actually have wallpaper for this wall, but I didn't measure properly. So now I have to find a way around. But I painted this so that I could at least sit and stream in my office. You Soldier Boy, I tell him. Man, I love Soldier Boy so much. What are you guys talking about? Oh, quick fast. How quick fast I do things. Well, let's remember I used to work in radio. You only have sometimes 3 minutes, even less, to get going. And I used to DJ in clubs. So I would have a song to run to the bathroom and everything and then get back. So we used to play Pursuit of Happiness, and we used to call it Pursuit of Happiness because you could finally go pee. Southern for bees and a fear of bugs in the rap. Okay. I actually had something on my mind yesterday to go with it. And it went something along the lines of, like, you have to call yourself big, something along those. It's not working, is it? Brain's not working. Let's turn off this banner as well. It's funny how, like, while I'm thinking about it, I am only coming up with things that are in other people's songs. Like, my brain is just sorting through all the raps ever. No, because Pursuit of Happiness was like, I think it's 5 minutes 5 minutes 40-ish, and it's 128 beats per minute. Excuse me. So you could the intro and the outro was so easy to mix into and out of. And it was like just the easiest thing to put on, run. When you come back, you just boop. Oh, Broken Baker's mock trial in 30 minutes. Oh man, I actually completely forgot. Like, to be honest, Evie, this is exactly what I was meaning. Like, the easiest thing to do with the man is just to say you're compensating for something. Like, I have a joke that is like what I used to say to guys is like, oh, it must be so cute. And it really like grates them. So I was thinking of something like that because like guys have to add big instead of like our rap name would be like whatever. GGPP. What was I saying? Oh yeah. On Broken Baker's mock trial. So currently I have my day job, which is very busy. I was writing about the Airbnb Montreal fire and buddy, come here. Come. Come in. Come. I was writing about the Airbnb Montreal fire, and it was a lot of research, and it was quite like difficult writing because it has to be a balance of creative, factual, and kind of engineering. It's like that channel is kind of looking into what went wrong. So that was pretty brain intensive. And then I also have contemporary dance twice a week now. So that's an evening thing. And then planning the wedding is also like in the background of my mind. And I have piano lessons that I'm supposed to be practicing for. And like things are going in and way back out. Steve, I remember that feeling, and I actually had it recently because I went from updating, like changing your meds and then going up a dose and suddenly being hyper focused. Like I went from 50 to 75 and I was super hyper focused, but I can take these off now if we're not going to watch a trial. And the problem is that like if your willpower isn't strong before it kicks in, then that hyperfocus goes to the wrong place. Like I can find myself if I go, okay, I'm just going to play Tetris until it kicks in. And then it kicks in while I'm playing, then I'm like one more level. And then I have to get myself out of it because then I'm hyper focused in it. Or if it just goes into the wrong place, then that's it. It's gone. Evie, basically Broken Baker was putting on a mock trial because I said I want to do a mock trial. And Broken Baker had an existing one that is happening in 30 minutes. And this morning when I was writing this gag order stuff, I was like, why didn't I just be pro se? That solves some of the problems because I wanted to be a defense attorney, but I could be pro se, and then we could basically lessen the amount of people that need to have spaces because otherwise we won't have enough spaces. Oh, Steve, like lists. List is the perfect example. I will be like, okay, if I just make this list, I will be able to execute the things. The list will become the hyper focus. And then like sometimes I will be like, okay, maybe I'll try Asana, maybe I'll try Trello, Notion, whatever. And then I will spend so long setting up this list that is going to help everything. And I don't do it and I don't maintain it. And I land up back on pen and paper. Like pen and paper lists is the only thing that works for me. You can have the best software in the world. I could have an assistant and I would still want pen and paper. It just like, but that doesn't mean that when I go into hyper focus mode, I'm not going to try and make like the prettiest to-do lists in one of the softwares. Yep, spreadsheets. I could have spreadsheets of spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets and I hate them as well because I can't do all the fancy things that some people can. Yeah, lists are great, but they also dovetail into lists of lists of lists of lists of lists. And you feel like you're being productive because you're making a list. And everybody says when you don't know what to do, just make a list. So you make the list. And then you're like, okay, now I've got the list. What do I do with the list? Yeah, it's like I feel very much in between about it. I was obviously diagnosed late, and I think it could really have been useful to have a diagnosis in school because it would have helped. Like, I wouldn't have been told so many times I have so much potential. And the downsides, like hyper focusing on the wrong thing or like ending a day and I've been sitting at my computer for 8 hours and I have no idea what I've gotten done. Like that's really frustrating. But at the end of the day, I love my ADHD because like it just feels like me. Like and it's like my people, you know? And then what do I do with the list when I'm done? I spend so much time on the list that there's no way I can throw it away or delete it. 100%. And also, my brain is so tired because I spent all that time making the list. And when I make a list, I probably also highlight it in different colors with different deadlines. And then I'm like, okay, now I know what I need to start with. But first, I need a nap because I'm tired because I made the list. This is so true, Evie. I literally have like, I never throw notebooks away because what if I need to remember something that I put in a list? Then it's going to be a problem. Or I'll start a notebook and then the pen and the paper won't be a good mix. So I will change to notebooks and then like the notebook, I'll change to a different notebook and then I'll be like, oh man, but now half my notes are in this book and I need them in this book. And then I don't want to copy them. So then I have 2 notebooks going at the same time, but the pen doesn't write nicely or my handwriting looks bad or whatever. Filing your lists. When things are digital, that's where it gets out of control. Like if I have to have digital filing, like I am amazing when it's other people's stuff. And like for work, I am so on point with organization for everybody else. My own organization is in the toilet. Absolutely in the toilet. I mean, it's the same with cleaning and tidying. Like, I am literally OCD diagnosed. If I feel like something is going to contaminate or harm someone, I can clean to the point where I have like an earbud going through the toilet, going through the not the toilet, through the fridge, the rubber thing. I can clean to that point because I'm like, oh my gosh, if someone gets sick, blah blah blah. But then like messy as ever for myself. And like I can organize, I love organizing other people's stuff, but my own, like if I opened this cupboard, that is it's a fat microphone in the way. If I opened that cupboard, it's like the perfect example of organized chaos. I know where everything is, no one else does. Evie, same. I have so much Google Drive space and it gets full and I back everything up to Google Photos as well because Apple storage is rubbish. So I back it up to Google Photos and then I delete it off my iPhone. And then also I put things on Google Drive because what if something gets stolen and then Google Drive gets full and I just increase the storage. Have you ever found yourself in this conundrum? You find a pen and you go to use it for the first time and it writes amazing. So amazing you can't bring yourself to use it because you don't want to use up the pen before you have a chance to enjoy it. Oh my gosh. Yes, and notebooks. when I'm like, this notebook is so beautiful. I just like I can't write in it if it's going to be untidy handwriting. The stuff you use is on top of the pile. Yep. Unless there's something that suddenly comes to mind that is at the bottom of the pile, then I flip the whole pile and it either goes into a bag or under something or somewhere it like squirrels away into a corner because I will get back to it, but I needed the thing at the bottom. I've got 2 Google One accounts going with extra storage, but I don't have the mental room to delete the 4 versions of the same screenshot I took 6 years ago. Oh my gosh. 100%. And also, like, I used to back up my laptop to a hard drive. But then when I was DJing, my hard drives were constantly full and I dropped them a lot because I was drinking back then. So I would drop them all the time and I'd be like, oh my gosh, all my stuff is going to go missing. So now I just drop laptop backups into Google Drive, but I don't always delete the things once I've done that. So then I would have backed up the same thing like 10 times. And then also, like when I film my vlogs, I move all of the stuff off the storage card onto my laptop. Then I upload it to Google Drive. Then I upload it to Google Photos. So I have every single photo and video of my vlogs ever in full version of like full quality version sitting in Google. Like, why? It could be one or the other. How would you be as a South African woman? The age-old question, well, Steve. That is a funny one. Both my son and his girlfriend are ADD. I fear for our future grandbabies. No, you know what the thing is, actually. Like, I've literally spoken to my psychologist about this. And like therapy, I think everyone on earth should have therapy. I've spoken to my psychologist about this because if you pour 2 ADHD people into 1 cup, you get double ADHD. And for us, the best thing is that we get each other in a way that other people don't. And we actually used to argue about it because, like, I wasn't diagnosed. But then now that we're both diagnosed, like, we get it. And one of my nephews also has ADHD. And it's so nice with my family that we can just talk about, like, mental health stuff, like, straight up. I will gladly say, like, my tablets make me feel weird or they make me anxious or, like, I feel a bit jittery today because I'm changing meds. Like, that is so much better, I think, for the kid to see, like, functioning people, even if it's, like, sometimes barely functioning. Like, it's just it's just a nice little, like it's relatable. Like, adults don't have it all figured out. And, like, some of us are figuring it out day by day, and some of us have never figured it out. I bought this desk that I'm using on a local thing. It's a beautiful vintage sewing table, but it needs reinforcements. And my DIY stage is currently parked, so I haven't fixed it. So every time I barely tap it, the whole thing shakes. Also, oh my gosh, I've nearly been live for 3 hours. That is wild. My voice is going to hate me. One thing I've tried to do for my kids is to never shy away from talking about my mental health issues. Amazing. Don't do it. I wanted to normalize them so they wouldn't feel ashamed if they needed to ask for help. Absolutely. And like, I think that's one thing I'm so proud of, like, millennials for. I mean, the Gen Zs are like, they are amazing with mental health stuff, but I think like us millennials are like really trying to make it a normal thing. I explain my symptoms to my kiddos so they understand that it's okay to not always be okay. Both are showing signs of neurospiciness. Yeah, I can imagine because like it's very, very, very genetic. But like we're pretty sure that one day neurodivergent is going to be what is currently neurotypical. Like, especially if we continue to be like on the path to rule the world. Because everybody's tried to think out of the box all this time, and we were just made to think out of the box, but thought we had to think in the box to fit into it. This is awesome. And I really hope it does feel like as time goes on, people get more open with it. And it's the same thing, like I didn't used to say that I'm OCD, that I have OCD because people throw it around so much like, oh, I have OCD, like I need things to be lined up straight. Like, no, I actually have it. Like there's times where I've watched a YouTube video and convinced myself that I'm going blind. Like this stuff happens. I also try to just be more open about it so that people who use it flippantly can kind of see like, oh, wait, like it's not quite what we have been told it is. Oh, some exciting sidetrack news that I wanted to say. I checked. I'm going to come back to the chat now. I just want to show this. I have I only have to get 177 more subscribers to be closer to a tier, which is exciting. It's hard when you start to see the signs of the same mental health struggles in your children, but at the same time, you have a unique perspective to be able to help them. Yeah, I'm sure there must be like quite a feeling of helplessness, like, and a little bit of like, it's my fault, kind of. Exactly. There's OCD and there's OCD. You know if you're OCD. And that's mostly because it is really not fun. I would happily like I don't mind having ADHD. Doesn't bother me. Some days I hate it. Some days I just want to scream, but it would be too loud and my brain would hurt. So I can't. But like OCD I would switch out for any day. I'm gonna get hiccups any minute now. And I'm quite lucky because like I have a psychologist that I've been going to for years and years and years. And we've worked through it together. And like I haven't had like a big bad moment for a while. And I take SSRIs every day and I'm pretty chilled. But the thing is, like, I guess it's kind of similar to ADHD in that when it's bad, it's bad, bad. It's not like in general, you know, with ADHD, like every day is a little bit tricky. But then when something happens, then it's like, oh my gosh, this is too much. That's kind of how it is the same as well. And obviously there are differing levels. Like not everyone has like worries about like death and that. Like there are people who have it on a milder level, but it's better not to like, oh, when people say on TikTok and whatever, like I'm feeling a little ADHD, I'm like, really? Really? Oh no, Steve, don't stress. I had actually said just before you joined that my concentration capacity was very quickly running out, and the court conversation was very thinky. So it turned into rants and bants, which is going to be a second playlist at some stage if I actually remember to like end a live and start a new one. We came for one law talk and we stay for the relatability. Evie, that's kind of what I thought of doing, like rants and bants was going to be like, let's just talk rubbish. And then like we were on a good path, and then I started to lose focus, and then everyone lost focus. The captain derailed the ship. But also it's 10 to 8, so I am going to have to head off soon. I want to quickly find Broken Baker. I haven't been on Broken Baker's streams at all. I sometimes get caught to negative news overload during the week and need to send my brain on a different path over the weekend. Oh my gosh, me too. On the weekend, normally we watch like The Bachelorette or like what's the other one? Bachelor in Paradise or Love Island, or it'll normally be like absolute like non-thinky things. The tricky thing for me is I can't stream during the week. So the weekends are my streaming times. So it's a little like double-edged sword. You're assuming we had focus to start with. Actually, you didn't, because there was just like random food fights happening while I was very seriously watching the man explain this stuff. Trash TV. Yeah, I think people in the US are calling it Bravo Girls or something like that. Like I can 100% binge some kind of trash TV for an entire weekend and not feel bad. Like Below Deck. I think I watched that like one day. Yeah, Steve, the tomatoes is a food fight. I don't know. Bug started it. I don't know. Yeah, he is. He's a recovery addict starting earlier because he used to start at 4 and I would end at 5. I've now switched my days to be 10 to 6 because we're heading into winter and I'm not a morning person. But the trials are only ending around, I think, 1 or 2 a.m. for me. So I'm leaving in the middle, unfortunately. And then I always like go back to the stream to catch up. And then I can't find the spot I left. And then I just get frustrated, or I watch like the whole thing again. Oh, that's why it's West Coast. Yeah, the tricky thing is like right now for me, it's 5 to 8 at night. I think Evie's 5 to 6, right? 2 hours at the moment. Well, in how many days? 27, 28, 29, 30. 30 days has September, April, June, and November. All the rest are 31. So 27, 28, 29, 30. In 8 days, I'll be in the UK. So it'll be, 1854. So I'll be an hour behind where I am now. And I think I am going to do the true crime to a live stream. The only thing I'm trying to figure out is how to get around the sound, because I don't quite know how to stream on my camera. I haven't figured it out. We have 4 different time zones on continental United States, 5 or 6 if we go to Alaska and Hawaii too. We have 1 time zone. Technically, Cape Town could be on its own time zone because our sunrise and sunsets are later than the rest of the country. But we're all on 1. Bug, I think I'm going to head off as well. So no stress. I want to watch this mock trial. And I just want to put it on the record that I am in no way wanting to steal or copy the mock trial ideas on Broken Baker. I didn't even know about it until they said that, until Bug Duggar said it last week. So I don't want anyone to think I'm like stealing it. It's fall getting to winter now. You're going to spring, headed summer in the UK. Yep. But for example, today was 20 degrees Celsius. And when I'm in Edinburgh, it's going to be 10 degrees Celsius. It's a half, and we are heading into winter. Evie, it was good to see you. I'm glad you could join. This has been a pretty long one. I'll probably try to do like an hour later next week or tomorrow. I mean tomorrow, but we'll see. Thank you so much, Cicchini, and thanks, guys. It's been so fun hanging out, even if we derailed. I think tomorrow, because it's Sunday, I'll just do a rants and bans so we can talk random nonsense. Doesn't matter what it is. And then we can try another day for thinky stuff. But thank you for listening to my gag order. It sounds so bad, I cannot say it. Thanks for listening to my what is it called? Dissemination stream. It all sounds bad. Have a good Saturday. Oh, I mustn't do this because this was the sign, right? I don't know. Bye.